and service. I'm going to just share our prayer, and I would like to ask one of the ladies, please, to volunteer. One of the mentees, please, to volunteer. Who would like to read the prayer for us today? I have to nominate someone. Tahira, would you consider, please, reading the prayer for all of us?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I am my sister's keeper. I will build my sister up, encourage her, empower her, and pray for her. I have no reason to talk about her, tear her down, be jealous of her, or to compete with her. I am going to stand behind her, help her into her destiny.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tahira. That's very well done. Thank you so much. So, just as a quick roundup, I'd like to start and ask everyone to share one thing they are grateful for today, please, just to hear everybody's voices in the room. Batu, could I ask you to start, please?
Sure thing. I'm grateful for water. We have guys fixing, there was an issue with our one geyser and they had to shut down the water for a while. And it's amazing how when there is something lacking, you need it more. I just suddenly felt so crazy thirsty because the water was shut off. And fortunately, it's back now. But I realized what a precious resource that we very often take for granted. So I am grateful for water and all that I can do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Batu. Kini, will you go ahead?
Sorry, I'm just also dealing with the mentees. What am I grateful? Electricity. We've had electricity for the whole week. Oh my gosh, it's been the worst. But I'm grateful for it. And I'm actually grateful for ESCOM because they actually came in an hour. I was very surprised. So ESCOM is actually not bad.
Thanks, Violet. Would you go ahead? Violet?
Oh, me. I'm grateful for good health. I had terrible back pain last week. I'm glad that I have recovered. You know, you take health for granted until you get sick.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lemise, please go ahead. Lemise, I don't think you're actually not connected on your audio. Let's try. Shireen, would you go ahead? Please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, Shireen.
I am grateful for I am grateful for family. I would say for life. We don't take it for granted, family. So yeah, I'm grateful for family.
Thank you, Shireen. Tahira?
I'm grateful to be alive today and for my family and friends.
Beautiful. Thanks, Tahira. Natasha?
I think I'm grateful today for good health. 2 of my friends tested positive for COVID yesterday, so it's been a rough 24 hours, and I'm really grateful that I'm still COVID free. So yeah.
Thank you. Rita, you want to go ahead?
Yes. I am grateful for the 7 mentees that are on this group today. We would not have a THMC cohort if we didn't have the mentees. So I'm grateful and counting my blessings for that.
Absolutely. Tubakal, do you want to go ahead?
Oh yeah. Oh well. I'm grateful for my family. For good health, for all the loved ones in my life, like my mentors right now, like everybody who's keeping the positive energy around me. Yeah, that's what I'm grateful for, and for my life, of course. Yeah?
Nice. Thank you so much, Tubakal. Katlego?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm grateful for the support I get from my family, and I'm grateful to. I'm really happy to see you guys today. That's what I have.
We're happy to have you to see you here today as well, Katlego. Thank you so much. Jabulile?
Hey. I'm grateful for like the others. I'm grateful for good health. And I think for favor, if that makes sense. I think up to this point, the universe has, showed good favor. I haven't had any serious issues, so I think I'm grateful for good favor.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Deepa?
I'm grateful for my family and friends and life in general with the COVID that's happening right now. I'm just grateful that most people that I know are just safe from it right now.
Thank you, Andisa. Yes, that's beautiful. Karima?
I am so grateful for the beautiful sunny weather we're having today. I'm sitting outside in my garden as we're doing this call.
Nice, beautiful. Popuso?
I'm grateful today that I was lucky to wake up. Not many people woke up today. I'm grateful for good
Our visitor on the call, Keza, would you like to say what you're grateful for today? Please unmute Keza.
She's my little.
There we go. Found it. Can you please repeat the question?
What are you grateful for today, Keza?
I'm grateful that I'm able to be back in South Africa with my family during these hard times.
Nice. Thank you. Who have I forgotten? Is anyone I've left out? Who hasn't spoken yet?
They both Katleho speak.
Only one Katleho.
Yeah, only one spoke.
Hello. I'm grateful for waking up this morning feeling optimistic, and for each and every person that is pure, and yeah, and for my family and friends. Yeah.
Thank you, Kakleho. It's beautiful. Thanks. I am very grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to have a beautiful session. I'd like to, first of all, just start talking about where we are in the program. And so, first of all, I'm just going to go through the agenda quickly. We've got our start now, our introduction. We've done our icebreaker. We're going to talk a little bit about where we've come to and what the session is about. We're then going to have our speaker, Natasha. We are then going to have our circles and then talk about what happened in the circles afterwards. And then there's going to be a prize awarded at the end. And I'll talk to that a little bit more now shortly. So first of all, girls, I want to go through where we've come from. This has been, so far, this is your 5th session, and you've had the building blocks of what G4G is about. If you look at the G4G logo, it says empowering girls to lead. And that's what this program is really, really about. And this session specifically is talking to that leadership. Where do you find your space in the leadership, and what can you do as an individual to fundamentally lead and make a difference in your life and in others' lives? So we started off with session 1, which is about building trust, getting to know your village, getting to know who the people are within your network who can help you grow and help you develop yourself. We then went on to courageous leadership, identifying what it was that we would identify in other leaders that we liked or that we aspired to be like. And that was important in terms of talking about what it was within you that you felt that you could use to grow further. We then went on to the art of communication, and that was about using the various art of communication skills to actually help you develop and grow within your leadership space. Then the session on negotiation was about using the U principle in terms of being able to negotiate and advocate for what you want and what you need. And if you remember, Amange gave some beautiful examples about how in her life she had to negotiate to get what she wanted. And each one of you also gave examples of how you had to possibly use negotiation at some point. And then finally, we get to public service and running for office. Now, the running for office concept is an old one. It was part of what, when G4G was founded, it was because Hillary Clinton had lost the election against Donald Trump in 2016, I think it is. I've forgotten the years now. It feels like a lifetime with Donald Trump.
Yeah, 2016.
But so one of the reasons that G4G was started was because they felt that there weren't enough women in the leadership space who were actually advocating and running for office. But what I want you girls to think about is not about running for office as in a political sense. I want you girls to think about how you can be part of leadership and service within your own space. Whether it be at school, maybe you're a class monitor, maybe you're a prefect, maybe within your circle of friends, you are your circle of friends who actually does something to drive leadership possibilities within your circle. I want to, for a moment, just shine a light or spotlight on one of our THMC cohort members, and I'll do that shortly. But first of all, talking about the last 5 blocks, I'd like to ask the mentees now to give an example of how they have used any of the last, or any of the skills that they've learned for G4G so far. So whether you've used negotiation, whether you've used your art of communication skills, where you've been courageous. And what's going to happen is I'd like to get maybe all of you to give an example, or maybe a few of you to give an example. And Natasha has co-written a book called Her Story, The Daughters of Modajaji. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. And she has, we are going to give the prize winner a copy of this book for giving the best example of how they have applied the G4G principles. So I would like to ask the mentees to think about times where they have used any of the skills that they've learned for G4G so far. And please could you volunteer so that I don't have to nominate anybody.
Should we do it now, Val, or should we do it a bit later once we've had a bit of a chance to think about it?
No, we asked the girls on the group to think about it. They have had some chance to think about it.
Okay. Pressure is on. Pressure is on.
Who's going to be the brave one? Lamise? Who's going to be that courageous mentee who's going to give an example of how they've applied G4G skills? Anyone?
Ooh. I'm going to go first. Well, yeah. I'm going to
well done.
say
well
negotiation skills. Like, I use that to my mother. Like, I apply that skills with my mother. I like soften her up. Like, I find things for her so I can ask her for something as well.
What did you ask? Oh, well done. What did you ask for? I want to know whether you came right.
If I can go with my friends to a party.
And did you get to go?
Yes, I did.
Well done.
And I want to know what you offered in return.
I would make a tea, I would listen to her, I would do my chores as well.
Nice.
Into a meal.
Well done.
Beautiful, Kisleko, beautiful. Who else would like to give an example? There's a beautiful prize up to grabs, ladies. Jabeline, do you want to try? No? Anyone else? Tahira? No?
Remember, ladies, that you need to unmute if you're trying to talk.
Come on, girls. It's a chance to show part of those courageous leadership skills in terms of stepping up. Anyone? You've been to 4 sessions now, most of you, so there must be a skill or 2 that you've applied or thought about at some stage during the day or... No? Okay. If you're shy, what you can do is you can type it in the chat box. Because then if you put it in the chat box, at least you in running for the competition. If you don't want to speak out, please put an example in the chat box. That'll be beautiful. And then later on, after Natasha has spoken, she's going to choose the winner and she's going to decide who's going to get the book. So please think about it. If you're shy right now, we'd be happy to see it in the chat box as well. All right. I'd like to now just share a spotlight, shine a spotlight on one of our mentees. Sorry, hold on a moment. One of our THMC mentees was brave enough to submit a video for our competition for Voices of Youth. And in a way, I believe that she used some of her skills that she learned at G4G. Besides the art of communication in terms of standing up, she also spoke very powerful, she used a very powerful poem to send her message and explain how she felt about things. And I just like to give her a huge round of applause. Please. Well done to her. She's unfortunately not on the call today, but wow. We got such a beautiful response on social media to her submission. And I feel like she really used her voice to try and express how she felt. And I think that's part of what this is about. And part of a little bit about also public service and stepping up in being able to contribute and give something of your voice to very strongly about. Okay. Just in terms of the, sorry, let me just get back here.
That's the quickest way, girl.
What?
There's no quickest way because the way is small. It's at least 15 lessons.
I can't hear. Is that Andisa? Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. Oh.
I muted her. I think she was talking to someone else.
Oh, okay.
Where did Val go?
Uh-oh, it's Val who has frozen now.
I keep thinking it's me first. I was like,
No.
Also, I was like, can anyone hear me? Valerie! Come back!
Okay.
Val. Oh no.
How distressing.
I know.
Rita, do you have a joke you'd like to share?
Aren't you going to ask me to dance?
Yes!
It does.
Thank you for the reminder.
No, I'm going to step in for Val. Well, she's probably going to log on and off. But I think I want to go back because we're seeing some responses from people. Tahira, you want to share a little bit with us? Just a little bit. Please turn on your mic and just let us know how you expressed your feelings with your mom.
For the first time even, that's amazing.
Ah. Tahira, please remember to unmute, but we would like to hear a little bit more about it. Ntebogang, are you back?
Yeah, she's here.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, let's have because you did a brilliant job on the WhatsApp group. You shared with you did the memory lane of where Girls for Girls has come from. While you had gone out, Valerie had asked for the mentees to share with us any of the lessons you've learned from Girls for Girls that you've been able to apply in your life. So I don't know whether there's anything you want to share with us.
Okay, I'm still thinking. I think I'll type that. I'll type.
You want to type? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Val is just telling me that she's had a power cut. Who is that who gave her that karma? I think that is
Kinewe. Yeah.
Kinewe passed on the karma. Okay, so I think then what we're going to do is we're going to start with the inspirational piece for today. So like all of you know, whenever we have a session on Girls for Girls, we always have someone come and share her story. So I actually thought that was going to be something the girls were going to say, that they remember that it's a skill to be able to share your story so that you can create a relationship with people. So we are privileged today to have one of our own mentors. I think it was selfish of us to ask Natasha, but Natasha is a special young woman. Her achievements for her age are already phenomenal. A lot of the older mummies sitting in here have not done half of what Natasha has been able to do. So she's going to share a bit of her story. But the reason we have asked her is because she's younger in terms of age, but also Natasha doesn't just talk about what she would like to do in society. She has started acting on society. So for us, Natasha is a perfect example as to how this session 5, which is about running for service or leadership and offering service to your community. She's a perfect example for that. So without much ado, I would like to welcome Natasha, who will tell us a little bit about her story and what it has taken for her to step up to the task and not only talk about what it is she's passionate about, but has actually started doing something that our society is benefiting from. So welcome to Natasha.
Thank you, thank you. I think it's a bit easier with only 6 or 7 mentees, so I don't have to feel nervous or anything. But thanks, guys. It was so weird to get asked to do this, only because it's weird to reflect on your own journey. It's hard. It's interesting. It can be cathartic to a certain degree. But yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity because at the very least, you know, this period of lockdown has been very introspective. So this has been quite an interesting way, I think, for me to reflect on my 35 3/4 years of life. When you're 35, you start counting again in quarters like a child because you don't want to not be a youth anymore. So I'm 35 3/4. And I have 3 more months before I'm no longer eligible to be a youth league president. So, you know, give me 3 months and then we will see. In thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I reflected on my whole life. And it's not a long life, but I mean, it's 3.5 decades. When I was in primary school, I realized that I'm a bit of a natural leader. Actually, it sounds weird, but I am. I remember in 1994, and none of the mentees were alive then, so that's fun. I'm gonna need a lot of you to turn your videos on so that I can see you. It helps me talk. So art of communication. I like seeing people. Yeah, we had to do like a mock election because obviously it was the first time South Africa voted democratically, and we did like a mock presidential election and we had to campaign and we had voting booths and things, and I didn't win, but that's not important for the story I'm trying to tell right now. And then in high school, I found myself in more leadership roles and I really wanted to be head girl. I didn't get to be head girl, but I think part and parcel of wanting to be a leader is also accepting the fact that you may not be elected to be a leader, you know, the disappointment that can accompany that. But not important. I got to varsity, I went to Wits, and found a ragtag group of strangers to run with for SRC elections, and we won, and we were completely non-political, and I think it was one of the first time in Wits's history where they didn't have a politically affiliated group who won an SRC election. We weren't ANC, we weren't DA, we weren't anything. So yeah, I was the deputy president, vice president of Wits's SRC. And that was really cool because it was the first time being a leader that I interacted with very inspirational people. When you sit on the SRC for a university, you get exposed to all the people in the council, in the Senate. So you deal with important leaders, I'm going to call it, in a varsity's leadership circle. And then I realized that despite, you know, all of these leadership roles that in my very limited life that I'd had, I hadn't realized that there's actually one very important thing you need to realize about leadership, that there's leadership and then there's leadership. I loved being a leader. I was 19 when I was the VP for the WITS SRC, and I realized that, and I want to apologize so much to Professor Nancy Kuhn from session 2. I believe you can be born a leader. There are people who have natural leadership abilities. But where I do think Nancy is correct is that just because you're a born leader doesn't mean that you're a good leader. It doesn't mean that you're an ethical leader. It doesn't mean that you're an effective leader, actually. So that's why I say there's leadership and then there's leadership, you know? And I realized at WITS that I like being a leader because I like being in power. And I'm going to tell you a very honest story because all I can be is honest about my leadership journey. But I like being in power because I liked the prestige associated with being in power. I liked that as a result, your place in society is that much more important and influential, and you feel listened to and heard, and you feel like your opinion matters, you know? But then when I was done with varsity, something so weird happened. It all fell away, and I was very lost all of a sudden in my life, which I'd never been before. My mom likes to use this saying, and thankfully she's not on this call today, but because she's quite a weird lady, but she likes to say, you're a fart in a hurricane. So, you know, I mean, and it basically means that you're just blowing all over the place. And that's how I felt suddenly for the first time in my life, that I had no purpose. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to achieve. And I was just blowing higgledy-piggledy all over the place. And I tried so many jobs in different and vastly different industries. I worked in fashion departments at magazines. I worked in events management, doing like varsity campus promotions. And then I even went to live on a farm. I milked some cows, not for payment, for farm life. Collected some eggs. It was weird, but I loved it. I loved it. I'm a born city girl, but I loved milking a cow. It's very weird. And I love collecting eggs. And I loved the simplicity suddenly that my life had become. And then I even worked on a rhino conservation project for the Department of Environmental Affairs. And that was very cool, I can't lie, but now there's like 2 rhinos left in the world because humans are terrible. So yeah, that didn't really work out. But then I was offered a job at the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. And my job was, back then, basically running the day-to-day operations of the foundation. And it was incredible because people who knew and worked with Oliver and Adelaide Tambo are very important people traditionally deemed in society. It's Frini Janwala, it's Thabo Mbeki, it's real leaders, like actual political leaders of society. And I loved being around them. I loved learning. I was completely gobsmacked that I got the opportunity, and still do, to talk to these people. But I realized that every day I spend hours, still to this day, talking about Oliver Tambo, but nobody ever really spoke about Adelaide at all. And when they did, she was just reduced to the wife of Oliver Tambo. And no one cared to change really that narrative at all. And Adelaide, when I learned about Adelaide, was the president of her ANC branch at 18. She convinced Oliver Tambo, who was then the Secretary General of the ANC, to come and talk at her branch of the ANC. When they went into exile, held down 3 different jobs just to take care of her family, because Oliver was going around the world trying to convince people to not support an apartheid government. And Adelaide held down the entire home front. She worked these many jobs. She raised her 3 children, and then she raised all these other children who just showed up on her doorstep in exile because they couldn't go back home. They couldn't come back to South Africa. She did all these things while Oliver was doing, yes, very important work, but it is a disgrace that her legacy then gets boiled down to the wife of Oliver Tambo. And suddenly I knew that my world wasn't the same anymore. And what I cared about the most was women, and specifically Black women. I'm unapologetically a feminist, and especially advocating for the equal and fair treatment of Black women. Our roles in life, and by Black I mean the umbrella term, Black, Indian, colored, etc. Our roles are reduced constantly to in relation to the men in our life, which I find disgusting. There's nothing wrong with being a mother, a wife, or whatever, but that's not all women are, ever. So I realized that society doesn't really want women, or specifically Black women, to have a place. And then what was the alternative? We'd have to make a place for ourselves. Black women have been dealt the rawest hand that I think we can be dealt in society, in the world, for a number of reasons, which I'm pretty sure we're all very aware of. And I had to ask myself, what was I going to do about it? So I decided, I think, to change the world. And it sounds pompous and it sounds arrogant, but here's the thing. Your world is, yes, the almost 8 billion of us. That's the world. But your world is a very different thing. Your world is the portion of the world that you influence. It's the portion of the world that matters to you, that cares about you, that you want to change. So through my work at the foundation, I developed projects about women. All I wanted to do, and all I still want to do, is try and improve the lives and the quality of life for young Black women. Remove the obstacles that I can remove, etc. My favorite foundation project happened so accidentally. My mom and her best friend started this line that I'm wearing. Tell her if you see her that I wore it, of white shirts, and it's called CC. And it's called CC because, you know, CC means sister, obviously, but it's also called CC because that's how they address each other, which, because she's not on this call, I'll tell you now, can be a bit annoying, but it's cute, you know, whatever. And for the first CC collection in 2016, I had been reading so much about how girls miss school in South Africa because they don't have enough money to buy sanitary towels, which is, it's so far past ridiculous. I actually don't know the word for it. How in this age are girls missing school because they don't have pads, when every girl in this world of a certain age has a period every month? It's something we cannot control. It happens, and yet, you know, there are girls in rural communities who have to use leaves or newspapers or fashion some sort of sanitary towel-esque thing out of old t-shirts or whatever it is. So I've been reading a lot about that, and then I asked the CCs if I could make an entrance fee to their pop-up shop of a sanitary pack, 1 packet of sanitary towels per person for anyone who came to look at shirts, buy shirts, or whatever. And by the end of the collection, we'd raised hundreds of packets, and it was incredible. I didn't expect it. I didn't even have a plan for what I was going to do with these pads when I collected, and suddenly there were so many. And a few months later, I was going down to the Eastern Cape to a tiny village called Nkantolo, and it is where Oliver Tambo was born. And I took all these pads with me. I had hand luggage, which was my clothes for the time I was there. And the luggage I checked in with these sanitary pads. There were so many of them. And I got to this first school that I went to, and I gave them all these pads, and they were so, so grateful. And then I realized I needed to turn this into a mandate of the foundation. It needed to become a whole project, because girls can't have an inferior level of education over something that they can't control, you know? You're missing school, you don't know half the curriculum, because every month you're going through this, every single month. But how do you then catch up when you're constantly missing school over something you can't control? And since then, we've expanded the project to include dignity packs, which include like underwear and roll-on and face cloths and soap and whatever it is. And now we've included water in it, because there's no running water in this village. And we're in the middle of a pandemic where your biggest line of defense is washing your hands. How are you washing your hands if you don't have access to running water? So that's how the project has thankfully grown, and we're busy raising funds for that. And while that was happening, a friend of mine, Tandi, a very good friend of mine, came back from America and wanted to bring a book for her niece, who was 2, about women. And she was like, do you know, there's so few books written about women, and there are no books for children written about South African women. It barely exists. And the liberation movement, South Africa today wouldn't be what it is without women. The world today wouldn't be. Why do we have no women stories accessible for children? And because I have incredible friends, we wrote a book, and you saw the cover just now. And we're all so passionate about the feminist agenda that we try to be as inclusive as possible. We found a Black female publisher. We found a Black authoress, I hate that word, Black female author, who could help us edit the book. We got young Black female illustrators. Some of them actually came from Afro Girls, now that I remember, who helped illustrate some of the portraits of the women in the books. And we launched our book in 2018 at a Black-owned bookstore. Everything was very deliberate. Everything was to push the agenda we wanted to push. Hi, Val. Welcome back. Nice
Hello.
to see you. Earlier I said there's leadership, and then there's leadership. And I now realize that while I used to enjoy the prestige of leadership, what I actually enjoy is being able to effect change. When I feel strongly about something, I like to use my natural talent and my positions and my ability to improve the life of others. It's what I was put on this earth to do. And power is fun, as I'm sure many people can tell you. But what you do with your power, I think, is the most important thing. I've been watching over the past few months how different countries have handled the COVID crisis. And it's been so interesting to see that the best reactions and the best actions in dealing with COVID have been by female-led countries. It's been Taiwan, it's been Denmark, it's been New Zealand. They've been the most flexible in their approach to COVID. They've thought out the box and used influences and used technology and used all these different mechanisms because they're women. And when women lead, we don't just lead to be leaders. We have a whole skill set that we don't value enough because society tells us that we're not good leaders, but we're the best leaders. And I'm in no way politically inclined, but leading or serving, and those two things you have to know are the same things. It is important to understand how to play the game of politics in getting what you want. So you don't have to be political, but understand that in leading, politicking comes into it. And while I don't necessarily agree with, what is his name, Steve, the man in the video that we watched today, I don't necessarily agree with everything he said. I do believe that people believe you when you believe in yourself. Leading doesn't only mean being the president or being the mayor or head of the UN or whatever. You can lead in your own little circle, like I said earlier, your family, your friendship circle, your church, your school, your community. But it is so important to remember that leading comes with responsibility. You lead to serve. You can lead, and leading sounds like the connotation is that you're at the front, but actually when you lead, you are at the back pushing your people, the people you're trying to influence, that agenda forward. For me, leading is figuring out what you enjoy doing, what you want to change, how you want to use your natural talents to affect those change. It may not have been blatantly clear throughout what I've been saying, but every lesson that you guys have learned from G4G is every lesson that got me to this point in my life, in my career. If you listened carefully, I have an incredible village that I rely on all the time, some of whom may or may not be in this call, but I'm not naming names. My village pushes me when I need to be pushed. They challenge me when I need to be challenged. They cheerlead for me. They support me. And they are a resource to rely on. And my village is made up of very strong women, but it's also made up, I've realized, of male allies. And this comes into play when you're trying to play the game of getting your agenda across. Because traditionally, men have more power, so you need to have strong male allies in order to negotiate your way into getting what you want. Make use of those resources that you have. Sometimes we can't do this thing alone. You need a village. So your village should be as diverse and as powerful as it can be. I found my purpose, as I've told you, which is helping others. My mom, bless her soul, always says to me, don't you want, well, pre-COVID, don't you want to live overseas? Don't you want to leave South Africa? Don't you want to, not be here? South Africa isn't very stable. I just want the best for you. And she means it so lovingly. And I always say to her, if I leave, and if we all leave, who stays and fights? Who changes South Africa's trajectory? Who then makes this country into what I think we all know and believe it can be? Shem. I love my mom, Shem. Don't tell her, but I do love her. She's very smart, but don't tell her. I learned that insufficient representation of women and the obstacles that we still face as women and young people today is what makes me the angriest. It's what boils my blood. And I think that's how I found my purpose. It's about what gets your blood boiling or what makes your adrenaline rush. That's how I found, because I didn't always know, like I told you, that's how I found that I kept getting angry that where are the women on this panel? Where are the women in these leadership roles? And then suddenly I was like, oh, it's women. It's women that I care the most about. I feel passionate enough, I hope you can tell, that I communicate effectively in getting my agenda across, which comes from the art of communication, obviously. And I think that when you are passionate, like Steve Harding, I think that's his name, the guy today. When you are passionate, thanks, that dude who was talking, that Oprah in the video, he said, when you feel as passionately as you can't help but come across as authentic and sincere in what you're trying to say. And that's palpable to your audience. They can feel it. Even if you're not confident about what you're saying because you're scared of speaking or whatever it is, that sincerity comes through as confidence. And it's infectious, really. If you think about the people you love listening to the most, you don't know if they're faking their confidence or not, but what comes across is that they truly believe in what they believe in. Like I told you about negotiation, having male allies has helped me a lot. But I advocate daily for the change I want to see in the world. It involves obviously playing a negotiation game. It involves picking my battles a lot of the time. Some things just aren't worth fighting over. And sometimes that means not dressing too colorfully or putting on a bit less perfume than you usually would, or not wearing as many rings, or sadly hiding your tattoos like I've had to do, or just to play the game. But it's because what you're trying to achieve is bigger than, you know, you having all your piercings out at that moment, because sadly we do live in quite a conservative little world. But it's about playing the game. And once you know how to play the game, you can achieve what you want, and then nobody's going to care that you have purple hair with, you know, a piercing from your nose to your belly button to your toe. Nobody will care because you've achieved what you needed to achieve. I think ultimately game playing is about getting what you want. And then finally, today's session, which we're about to talk about, is having the courage to use all you've learned in G4G, all 5 sessions up to now, 4 and a bit, to effect the change that you want. Women are remarkable leaders. We are complex and so multifaceted and play so many different roles in society. It's actually a shame that there aren't more female leaders, because we're more empathetic, we're more flexible, we're more courageous, we're better multitaskers, all these wonderful things that make us really effective leaders and will make you all very great leaders. Using the gifts you have, the natural abilities, regardless of how big or small the opportunity is, don't wait for things to change. I mean, we all complain. Complaining is a normal thing. Complain until you're blue in the face. But complaining isn't going to really change anything. You have to, and it's so cliched, and I'm ashamed of myself for even saying it, but you have to be the change you want to see in the world. Speak up against wrongdoing. Speak up against bad things you see in the world. Fight for the things you believe in. Be what you want the world to be. I feel like Miss Universe. I hope you're all taking me seriously. Be what you want the world to look like. You guys, all 6, 7 of you here, and actually all the mentors, you're all capable, I promise you, all capable of leading in whichever way, big or small it is. So be a leader, not for power, not for the wrong reason. Be a leader for people, and be a leader for purpose. So thanks for listening to me and my journey.
Wow. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
Wow.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry, I'm on my phone now, so please excuse me if my technological capabilities are a little bit less than what they should be. But Natasha, that was absolutely amazing. I came in, fortunately I didn't listen too much. I cannot believe how well you completely encompassed everything that this session is about. in terms of finding your personal journey, in terms of getting to, you know, going through different things, trying different things until that thing came, it finally hit you, you know, that was your thing. I'd now like to ask, does anyone have any questions for Natasha, please, ladies? Anyone have any questions? Girls? Okay, I'm just going to, sorry. Anyone have any questions?
I don't mind.
I don't have a question, but I just, yeah, I just want to commend Natasha for just, you know, I think you took us through just this beautiful journey that that you've traveled, and I think the thing about leadership is you never arrive, and it sounds to me like it continues, right?
Absolutely.
The evidence for that is you started with something so small. You said, you know, why are there no pads for these girls? And suddenly it wasn't just about the pads, and then it was water, and then it was, but the fact that you started, and I think that for all of us, not just the mentees, is the takeaway. And the fact that, you know, sometimes we struggle with, what is my purpose, when it's really staring you in the face? What are you angry about in the world? And how do you then take that anger and direct it constructively to something you can change? So I took away a million nuggets out of what you shared. So your 35 years on the planet have been nothing but wonderful. And three quarters. So I think, you know, regardless of our, you know, different ages in this community, you are testament to what happens when a woman says, enough is enough, I'm going to change something. So thank you so very much for what you do.
That's so kind. Thank you. Thank you.
Natasha, I'd like to ask you, you were talking about your mom saying, you know, what you're doing, where you're going in your life, and that kind of pressure. I mean, I think a lot of us, that community or people around us asking us things, you know, or expecting us to do things. How did you overcome that? How did you overcome that kind of, because that becomes hard sometimes, that judgment from people when you're not following the path they think you should be following.
Sure, I'm so glad Cynthia is not on this call, so I can be really honest. It was hard. It was really hard. My parents had a very clear vision for my life. Obviously, as parents, you know, they want the best for you. They do all these great things. And then I wasn't those things. And it was hard, and it was a point of contention to a large degree. But I think where I'm really grateful is that even in my most lost time, they didn't give up on me. But also I was very clear that I just needed time to figure it out, and it would happen. I needed the space and because the pressure of them being like, you must, didn't help it happen any quicker. And they, you know, I was living at home for a bit, and they were like, okay, cool. If you're gonna live at home while you figure things out, then you must be active in figuring things out, you know, get a job, get a whatever. And it wasn't easy, and it put a lot of strain on our relationship. But I'm grateful that they eventually, after fighting a lot, sat back and they were like, the only way she's gonna figure this out is if we give her the space, because fighting clearly isn't working. It's not gonna hurry your purpose along any quicker, or the realization of your purpose any quicker than, you know, your parents being like, be a lawyer, be a lawyer, be a lawyer. Yeah, I studied law, but I don't want to be a lawyer. And I think maybe if I did in like 10 years time, then want to be a lawyer, that would be great, but it's my journey. It's my, you know, my journey to figure out. So it is tricky, and it took a lot of negotiation for, you know, to get the space to figure things out. But yeah, ultimately, they had to realize, I think we both had to, that it was just going to take time and space. Yeah.
Lube's got a lovely question that actually goes into that as well. She asks, how do you deal with people highlighting flaws in your, what's wrong with the ideas you have? Which is a beautiful question. Thanks, Jabulile.
Thanks. I think a lot of what I've learned, and even in watching Steve Harding's video, it takes a lot, but you have to have the confidence to be unapologetically yourself. And that takes a lot of hard work and practice, or maybe it doesn't. For me, it really did. I read the most incredible article this morning from the author Roxane Gay. I don't know if you know, she wrote the book Bad Feminist. And she very overweight, and she was talking about how she had gastric bypass surgery or something like that. And she was saying before she had the surgery, she felt that her world was so small because she was so scared to travel in the world being someone overweight. So she deliberately made her world very small, that she'd just be in New York all the time, because sitting on a plane or walking in different societies that weren't her comfort zone scared her so much because of how she looked in the world. And she got some surgery and she lost some weight. And then even when she wasn't losing weight, she was just like, I can't keep making my world so small, because the world isn't going anywhere. Well, it sort of did with COVID, but the world isn't going anywhere. But I want to see it. I want to experience. She said she'd always wanted to sit at a cafe in Paris. And she was like, I have to just do it. And I think that's how flaws in your plan work. They can hold you back, and you will be judged for it. People will be like, oh, but you were meant to be, or, oh no, this isn't how you get to be, whatever. But I think it's just about believing that even this might not look like a traditional plan, a traditional trajectory. Good God, what a word. You will get there. It is your journey. And comparing your journey to anyone else's journey is an exercise in futility. You will get to where you're meant to be. But me being like, oh, by 27, Kini was a PhD. I know you're not, girl, but you're there almost. Kini was a PhD. Mabata was a plastic surgeon. And by 27, I'm not. I'm still figuring myself out. It's your own journey. It's your own life. So yes, there will be flaws, and yes, people will judge you, but it is your journey. So you can't take that on too much. You have to have the confidence. I wrote somewhere in my notes today, and I know I'm now not going to find it, but yeah, I wrote that you have to have confidence in your journey. Don't take on what others think, to a certain degree. I mean, we're all human. We all live in society, but just be confident that your flaws make up part of your plan. My flaw was moving to Natal, and if I hadn't moved to Natal and milked some cows, I wouldn't have met the person who offered me the job at the foundation, and I wouldn't have found my then purpose. So your flaws are part of your journey, and that is the most long-winded answer, poor Jabulile, to the question that you asked me.
To the people. The other thing Tavahong was asking is, are there any books that you can suggest that people read, or are there any books that are your favorites that you would like to recommend?
Besides my own.
Yes, besides your
own. I really like Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I'm a big fan of Alicia Keys' new book. Actually, I don't remember the name, but it's a wonderful, wonderful depiction of her journey through her life and coming into her own. Like I said, Roxane Gay's book, Bad Feminist. And then I think, mostly anything by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, with some exceptions. And then Things Fall Apart.
It's one of my favorite books, sorry.
Yeah, I think those are my top a top book. But you know, books are also for different things. I love the Irish author Marian Keyes, and she just writes the most lovely, shallow in the best way, like chick lit. I hate that stupid name, but the genre is called chick lit, and it's very good for what it is, which is just lovely, easy reading, escapist reading, which shows women in very different ways. Women in abusive relationships, women in powerful positions, women trying to fall pregnant, women leading, women not leading. And I think it's just easy reading that shows the multifacetedness of women. So you don't always have to be reading Ayn Rand or, you know, Nelson Mandela, God bless him. But you can read things, you know, that are fun and still teach you wonderful, wonderful things. And I love rereading books. And I find that when I reread books, I take different things from them every time I do. So, yeah. Also, this book, my favorite book.
Someone is going to be lucky enough to get, right?
Yeah, I'm excited.
I have a question for you, Natasha. If you go back to when you were, you know, that young age when you say that you started stepping into leadership, yeah, when you were doing the first presidential run, I want you to go back to that first point when you started stepping up, before you knew and even that you liked leading.
Yeah.
Can you just share with us what it is what happened in you, what transformed for you to be able to say, today I'm stepping up? Because I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, is that you see the opportunity, or you think, this is where I should be making a change. This is what makes me angry, but we hold back. What is it for you that allowed you to like step into that moment? Because it looks like the moment you did, you started moving up. What is it?
I'm gonna be very, very honest. It was my parents. It's my village. My parents were like, okay, gosh, the only way I really know how to answer questions is really long-winded. I'm so sorry. But my parents, I was the first grandchild on my mom's side and on my dad's side to go to private school. And it was pretty unheard of. You know, we lived in Westbury, and my mom stumbled honestly, accidentally across the school that she then sent me to. It was a mistake. She was lost. There was no Google Maps. She found the school. She sent me. And then suddenly I was 6 and going to a private school. And I think that legacy, as it has now become, my parents were, they worked really hard to send me to the schools, and my sister, that we went to. But I think then, I mean, it was 1990 and South Africa was so different. And in order to be a Black kid at a predominantly white school, you have to, and I'm sorry for the reality, I think it's the case even now, 30 years later, you have to be exceptional in order to feel like you belong. You can't just be Black. You have to be a great Black. And that shouldn't be the case, because you have every right to be at the schools that you're at and get a great education. Literally, it's constitutionally enshrined that you have the right to education. But it wasn't the case 30 years ago. And I think my parents really pushed me to be exceptional so that they could show people that Black people have every right to be there that white people do. And I think it's where obviously a lot of the pressure that I felt came from, but it was my parents being like, while we're here, while we have this opportunity, and honestly, we didn't know how long it would last for because the country was in so much political unrest. They were like, you're gonna have to make the most of it, you know, you're gonna have to be the best little Black kid this school has ever seen. So I think it was definitely my parents pushing, and then it showed me that I just have a natural au faitness for that, you know.
So it's your village. It's your village, and you draw confidence and inspiration from
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The thing is that when I listen to you, you're very clear as to who is in your village. You also are very clear how to use your village.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I mean, it's a lot older.
There's also an element of overcoming adversity. I mean, you actually you were doing things that you weren't expecting having to deal with. So there's that also overcoming those challenges as well that helped you develop and grow.
It is. And I think, now in the last few weeks, we've seen so many people talking up against racism in independent schools around the country. And I sit on my high school's Old Girls Association, and it is devastating to see that the racism has actually just increased since I left, as opposed to decreasing. One would think as more and more Black people went to the school that it would decrease, but it isn't. It hasn't. But again, sitting on the Old Girls Association is something I feel like I have to do, because it's not right that I left 18 years ago, and girls are still going through what I went through at St. Andrews, But then how do I fix it? I can only fix it from sitting on associations and influencing board decisions and things like that, It is adversity, and it's adversity that actually should have no place in society. This shouldn't be the reality for young Black girls, for young Black boys, but it is. So then what? What are you going to do?
Any other questions for Natasha? Okay. Natasha, thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thanks, Kylie. Yes, that is what it's called. Alicia Keys' book is called More Myself. Well done. Thank you.
All right. We are going to, hang on. Here's another one from Jabalile. How do you choose your community? There's a nice one, Natasha.
Ooh. I may as well just talk about the whole of
community village.
Can I say, like,
yes,
actually read the question, because I think when you listen to and when you read a lot of books and videos and audios, they always tell you choose the people around you. They always say if you aren't sitting with 10 geniuses, then chances are you aren't a genius in it. And it's like it's a large aspect of advice is like who's around you, and whether or not the people around you are planning these big things. Can you turn to them for this advice and that? And it sounds nice. It sounds like, oh, all I need to do is choose people. And then you look around and it's like there aren't that many people to choose from, first of all. And it's difficult to build new relationships, because you already have these people that and they're not necessarily according to the videos, they aren't the kind of people that you should choose around you. So I'd like a little more, like a little more information on how you navigate. Okay, how is this person good for me, or do I only expose certain people to certain parts of my life? Or so that's my question, because I've heard choose your people a million times. It's the option to choose them is different.
Choosing your people, choosing your village is a trial and error process for me, unfortunately. A few weeks ago, we were doing some mentor training, and I said that choosing your village is based on the fact that people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. You can be friends with someone who is your friend for whatever reason, and they may not necessarily be a good person to have in your life. But the only way you would know that you don't want this person in your village is from being in that person's space, And then you sort of begin to learn what qualities you're looking for in a village member and what isn't beneficial to yourself. Through also platforms like G4G, you'll grow your village. You'll be exposed to people you weren't ever exposed to before and may not necessarily be in the future. And you never know where something like this will take you. I have lost friends along the way, and it's a part of life. I've lost family along the way, and not to like death, to the fact that our value systems don't align. And you'll learn more about value systems in the next session, in session 6. But it's important to figure out, and not to like this great existential degree, like who you are, but just what you stand for and what your boundaries are and what you're willing to compromise on to a certain degree and what you aren't. And you know, some people are in your village differently for different purposes. So for example, Guinea is my cousin, poor me, but she's also my friend. I've chosen her as a village member, not because we're blood relatives, but because I like what she brings into my life. She's a hardworking person, which I identify with. She's ambitious, which I identify with. And so we relate on that way, besides being cousins, but as somebody, a chosen village member. Your village is chosen. It's not your God-given village, your mother, your father, your sister, your whatever. It's who you choose to have in your life, either as a support structure, somebody to push you in your career, somebody to give advice. And there could be different roles for different people. It's still your village. It's not this one-dimensional thing that Val must be the person I call when I'm crying. She must give me advice when I need it. She must take my career forward. She must give me dating advice. No, one person is everything to one other person, but you have different village members for different reasons or seasons or for an entire lifetime. So choose your village. You'll figure it out eventually. Some people you meet immediately, your vibes don't connect, your auras, whatever you want to call it, your energies, you're just like, this person, not for me. Trust your gut. That person is not for you then. But other people will come into your life. They'll be here for as long as you're a G4G mentee or mentor, and then you'll never see them again. But they brought in whatever they brought in to your life for that moment, and it's great. Other people, maybe you love Mabata and you're like, oh, Mabata, the work that you do is so important. Can you help me further myself in this aspect? And then maybe Mabata's there in your life for forever. So your village comes with trial and error, but yeah, trust your gut in forming your village. And don't be hard on yourself. People will leave. It's fine. New people will come. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Could I add to Natasha? I think when we talk about choosing your village, yes, you have to be brave, which is one of the reasons we have courageous leadership as module number 2. We bring it in early. What is the worst that will happen to you if you ask Rita, please come and help me with this? The worst is that I will say no. That's a lesson for me that has worked in my life. My father always said to me, the worst that will happen is someone will say no. I will share a little story. Just this week, we talked about the fact that we want to have a gender-based webinar, a gender-based violence webinar. We want to fight against it, want to speak up against it. And we thought to ourselves, well, one of the spokespersons is Miss Universe. And so, everyone's like, who's going to ask? And we thought to ourselves, what's the worst that will happen? She won't respond or she won't say no. So we've written the letter. You have to try. The point is, you have to keep pushing it and stepping out. That's the first point I wanted to make. The second is that when you get even 2 or 3 people in your corner, and they're here, like Mabatu has put in the chat, this is already an opportunity, and I call it an opportunity for village. It becomes your village when you reach out and say, Mabatu, Auntie Mabatu, this is how I want you to help me. Auntie Val, this is how I want you to help me. Miss Andiswa, this is how I want you to help me. You have to consciously reach out. When you have the first 2 or 3 people in your village, you become stronger because Mabatu, Valerie's, Andiswa's village can easily become your village. Again, I'll give myself as an example. When I started Girls for Girls last year in 2019, April, we only had, Kini was one of the first people with me. We had, I think, 28 mentors, right? 28. Today in our database, we have 120 plus mentors in the G4G database. That is in just over a year. How did it happen? Because the first 28 women that we recruited, who we called our village, then brought their villages. So for me, I hope you get that that's a very clear way as to how you grow your village. If you take even 1 or 2 women, even mentees, they also become your sisters from here on. If you take 1 or 2 and turn them into your personal village, then it means that their village now can easily be tapped into. Once you tap into that second level of the village, the world is your oyster at the end of the day. But for me, the first step is trying. And yes, you might be scared. But like we said, Girls for Girls, do it scared, do it afraid. Ask. The worst that will happen, they'll say no. But step up. Yeah?
I just want to add to that one story I always tell people. In university, I was able to finish early, and that's because I realized that I was going to stay a whole semester to do one class. And even though you had to do one class to get to the other class, I was like, this is ridiculous. I could be finished early. And literally, I thought to myself, all I have to do is ask. And I did it. So I did the 2 subjects simultaneously, and it worked out great. So it's something you have to consciously say to yourself, okay, I'm going to ask. And if they say no, we'll find another way.
I have to
it's hard, but sorry?
I have to give you a great example. A friend of mine, Nyoko, is an advocate in there where Auntie Fumuto is, and Teresa and Jenny. And Nyoko is 40, and she went to study in America, and she put herself through Smith College braiding hair. That's how she paid for her school fees. And when she came back to South Africa, she studied economics at Smith. When she came back, she went to UCT and she did her honors. And then she convinced UCT that she'd be wasting her time doing a master's. They should let her go straight to PhD. Nyoko is about 2.5 feet tall. She's the tiniest person I've ever seen in my whole life. She is, possibly why she's an advocate, the smartest, but most convincing person. She's so persuasive in the way she communicates that she could convince an entire tertiary education institution that masters would be futile and she should go from honors to her PhD. And she did. She's a doctor of economics and also an advocate. And also, so the most you can do is ask. They can laugh and they can say no, but then what? You asked, but you won't know unless you ask.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Any other questions for Natasha? No. Natasha, thank you again. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you very, very much.
Very welcome. Thank you guys for listening.
All right, ladies, we're now going to just talk about, I'd like to, Rita, I think we were talking about shining a spotlight. Is that what you'd like to do?
Yes, because of the confidence. I think that's what village is great for, if you listen to Natasha. Her village is what allows her to say, I'm running for president in the mock presidential election. So shining the spotlight, which we learned about under negotiations, is important for you to gain that confidence. Every time you're challenged, you must remind yourself, I am smart. With my daughter, we have a saying, which we took from The Help. I don't know whether anyone has read that book. Great book to read.
Great book. Great book.
You is smart, you is kind, you is important. That is our, it's you is smart, and that's what you girls are. You're in school, you're leaders where you already are. You is kind, you have a human heart, you is important. No one must ever tell you that you're not important. So how is it that we give ourselves confidence? How is it that we give I keep on doing this because we learned it from the Ugandans. How is it to give confidence to other people? So shining a spotlight is, an example, and I thought it would be great to do it now.
Rita, who would you like to shine a spotlight on?
Ntebogang, immediately. Ntebogang, where's your video? Put it on. Is she here? Yes. So I shine a spotlight on Ntebogang because actually all my genuine queens. I don't know whether you've noticed, like the majority of the participants today, are here. Ntebogang is always on the ball. You ask a question, she's always the first to respond, but it's not a quick response. It's what I call a considered response. I asked the other day, what is the journey that we have come through on G4G? And you could see, Ntebogang took her time, and wrote it out so beautifully. So for me, I shine a spotlight on Ntebogang, on all the girls in Genuine Queens, but I shine a particular spotlight on Ntebogang because she really takes Girls for Girls seriously. For me, she's already part of my village. There's no way this young lady is going to walk away after session 6 and we say bye-bye. I already know that we have a longer path together. So I'm shining. I start off by shining on.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's so beautiful. Who else would like to shine a spotlight? Anybody else?
You can shine a spotlight on someone else. So Ntebogang, you can also shine a spotlight on one of the girls in your group. Or in whichever
Okay.
sector.
All right, not a problem. Okay, well, I'm gonna shine a spotlight to W. Like, she's one of the mentees who are, outspoken. Like, she always has something to say, and she's so confident. She's so sincere and genuine. So, like, I'd like to shine a spotlight to her. Yeah.
Thank you. That is beautiful, Ntebogang. That's beautiful. Thank you. Jabulile, would you like to shine a spotlight on someone? We're making it a chain now.
I see. I think I'd definitely like to shine a spotlight on Katlego. Because I still remember when we had our speeches, and I still remember, like, she always sounds enthusiastic in saying something. Even when she was giving thanks, it was sorry. Even when she was giving thanks, it's like whenever she is like addressed, she's always ready to respond to whatever it is you've asked her to address.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jabulile. Thank you so much. Katlego, do you want to say something?
Well, I like to shine a spotlight on our leader, Rita. Like, she's been like courageous and like she helped us through a lot. And I would like to say thank you for being our leader.
I missed who that was. I'm so sorry. I missed the beginning.
Rita.
Who was that?
Rita.
Ah,
Yes.
fantastic.
My genuine queens.
All right, Rita, you want to go?
You want me to go again?
No, Lamisa was passing on the chain. Lamisa?
Oh, Lamise.
Lamisa, sorry. I'm sorry, I can't see in the gallery, so I can't see who's on the. Yeah. She's still there.
No.
Okay. Anybody else who'd like to shine a spotlight?
The mentors can also do the same. Let's keep getting the circle going. Violet?
I would like to shine the spotlight on Tahira. Tahira, she's such a star since the beginning of this program. More especially online, she's been struggling quite a lot with connectivity, but she constantly tries her best to make sure that she participates in the program. So you are our shining star, Tahira.
Yay! Yay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Can I shine a
Yes,
spotlight on Jabulile?
Yes. I think Jabulile has been amazing. She always has something to say, which has a good input. She always has a good input to give us. She sounds very enthusiastic and confident in herself, and I feel like we can learn something from Jabulile and how she has carried herself throughout our sessions.
Absolutely. All right. Should we move into the circles?
Are we going into circles today?
Do you want to go into circles? What is the general feeling? Do you want to stay in the plenary or should we move into circles?
We only have one mentee for now. Lemise has disappeared. I've tried to check with her on the phone. She hasn't responded. So we only have Kylie.
So should we just stay in the plenary for now?
Yeah, I think so. We are moved to other cycles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's say in plenary.
Okay. I'd like to pose a question to the girls about who feels like they have an area that they would like to specifically try and be a leader in, or give an example of where they are currently being a leader in their environment and where they feel like they could make a difference. Does anyone have an example like that? It could be in school, it could be amongst your siblings, in the home, it could be anywhere. Is there an issue, do any of you have an issue in your community or in your environment right now that you would like to try and help out with, or fundamentally like do something about? Is there something that you guys care about within your circle of friends, within your school, within your community that you feel you could do something or make a difference?
Someone mentioned earlier, who was it, that they have condoms at school, but the sanitary pads aren't free? Who was it? I'm trying to check back in the chat.
Okay, was it here?
Yeah, it was in the chat. Mabata even responded to her. Who was it? Oh, Katleho, it was you. Katleho with a G.
Yes.
You said at school you had a debate as to why condoms are free but pads are sold in society.
Yes. Like most of the girls like debated with the guys because the boys are like can become ignorant and like they want condoms to be free. Like why should a girl buy pads for like something that she really needs in like condoms aren't really doing anything because people are still getting HIV, they still getting STIs, and teenage pregnancy is also high. Yeah. Like we should actually make pads free in like CL condoms because like condoms is not doing anything. It's not making a difference in this world.
What do you think you could do?
Well, I think I can actually speak out and like tell like actually I can start a debate and tell people like we need to stop this where pads have to be sold because like some girls can't even go to school because of the periods and they don't have pads, they can't afford to buy pads. Yeah.
If you have someone on this call who could possibly help you with that situation, who do you think you should speak to?
Excuse me?
I said there's somebody on this call who might be able to, someone in your village who might be able to assist you with that.
Well, actually, the school did start giving pads for free out at school. So, like, each girl gets a sanitary bag and pads with pads in whatever she needs.
That's
so they
great.
get change.
And how did that come around? How did the school start giving sanitary pads to the girls?
The girls like spoke up and said like they can't go to school because like they don't have pads. And one of the teachers, female teachers, actually started helping us out in giving pads out and sanitary bags. Yeah.
So does it have to stop at Westbury High?
No, we don't have to.
So there we go. What else, if you've seen that it works at Westbury High, do you get any ideas in terms of beyond Westbury High?
That each and every school, actually each and every community should start giving pads out to girls and helping them out.
Okay. But how do you make that change? How could you? Because this is where we now say, now you have an idea. Your idea is that, we should start giving out pads beyond Westbury High. You actually now want to start doing it in other schools. What are the things that you could do? Forget whether or not you're able to do it, but just what are the ideas you could have? And then from there we can discuss who could help you.
Okay.
And the conversation, everyone can join the conversation. Huh? So Tahira, Katleho, Jabulile.
First off, we're gonna have to start with starting an organization.
Okay.
Like with females. It doesn't actually have to be about females only. Like can be both male and females.
And what would that organization do?
The organization gives pads to females that cannot actually afford to buy pads or sanitary.
Okay.
Yes.
And also probably convince the mothers, people in the society that it's important that they contribute towards that cause, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So already right there, that's how you develop an idea. You think about it, like Natasha said, what is it that makes you angry? And it's probably because you get angry that there's so many girls, whether they like it or not, they get a period every month. But they don't have pads. So that made you, like something needs to be done. And that's how you push the idea forward. So well done. Thank you so much for thinking through that. Huh?
Okay, thank you.
But may I talk about the condoms? Because I work in the public health space. The condoms work. We have to have this conversation. The condoms work. It's just how they are used or whether they are used consistently. So I'll be brutally honest, they have to be used properly, which means the boys and the girls need to be shown how to use the condom. That's one. Two is that you can't pick and choose and say, today I'm feeling sweeter towards him, we're not going to use the condom. It has to happen all the time. It does stop HIV. 99% of the time a condom is used, it stops the transmission of HIV. So I just don't care about that. It's how the condom is used that is the problem. So that nice organization of yours, maybe it can tackle both the girls and the boys. I was about to say.
But I think also it's not about one or the other. Condoms can be free, but so can sanitary towels. Yeah, it's not about, okay, the boys.
Can I add on that?
Can
I add on that? I think the reason she wants sanitary pads to be free is because regarding condoms, like you choose to have sex. Unlike going on your periods, you don't get to choose.
Absolutely.
Whether you like it or you don't, but you have to go on your
Yeah, can I ask something?
Go ahead, Professor.
Yes, Katla, my question is related to what Gabriel has just said. To say, what else can your organization do? What will be the other objective? Because at some stage, it's not going to be sustainable to only collect pads. But you were saying, why should we buy them? So what do you think your organization could do to make sure that the powers that be get that message to say, why is this free and then why is the other one being bought?
Well, we could, we could get investors. Like, I'm willing to invest in my organization. Yes, for faith. Like, I'm willing to invest in my organization, but I will also have to convince other people to invest in my organization so that we can actually move forward.
All right, thank you, Katlego. Anyone else have anything that they'd like to add? Who would like to join Katlego in her organization, or does anyone else have something else they'd like to do instead? I'm going to call out a name. Jabalila, is there anything that you would be interested in trying to make a difference, or anything in your environment where you feel like you'd like to get involved in?
At the moment, not really, because I haven't really gone out. I'm currently not at school, so there is, in terms of changing, there is like stuff I'd like to do amongst cousins, because I feel like because most of my cousins are like, we're all peers from, I think 16, okay, from like 25 to 13. And I feel like if our parents don't tell us to come together, or if we aren't at a family function or a family event or whatever, then we don't really try to make plans amongst ourselves. And I think that's also why I was trying to highlight the whole community thing, because you can't exactly choose your family. So I think that's the only thing I've been working on at the moment, is trying to get us to connect outside of our parents, and just try to get to know each other outside of, a couple of family family functions and things like that. So for now, I haven't done much, but that's something I'd really like to work on, so that I can have a close community for myself.
There are two questions I want to ask you there. First of all, there's obviously a need for you to do that, which means that do you feel like it's a need that they have as well, or is it something that only you feel? Do you think that they need to also have people in their life? And then secondly, my second question is there anything about Katlego's organization that you could feel or could relate, or anything that you would like to get involved in?
I think, firstly, I do feel like it's a need amongst all of us, because when I'm with one or two of them, and we talk about stuff like this, it does sound like they look forward to also trying to not be afraid for us to like connect and talk. And then secondly, in terms of with Katlacha's organization, I think it would connect, because it's it's a family of guys and girls, and I think like Aunt Natasha said earlier, that it's important to have male allies, and I think that if they were able to help in educating boys that, okay, sometimes girls act weird, or sometimes they go through something, and it's not something that makes them dirty, or it's not something that makes them weak, but once in a while they'll need a moment to recuperate themselves. Or so I feel like if let's say we were to, or let's say as we get closer together, being able to invite them to events where we're helping out other girls would become easier, because we've connected personally as family. And if I were to say, okay, I need about 10 people to come and help me with something, then it makes it easier for me to call them and say, okay, I've got reliable cousins and family members, and it's easier for us to like push the narrative we're trying to get.
I love the fact that you want to mobilize your community, you want to mobilize your village. That's so exciting. What is stopping you from doing it at the moment?
I think the only thing is that we can't quite meet up, but we do have. We did start our WhatsApp group amongst each other. We got birthdays out of the way. We got like current occupation. It just wasn't something I'd quite thought about until I realized that, okay, maybe I should, instead of looking for my community out there, I should see what I can do within my space.
Wonderful. It sounds like they need you. It sounds like they need you to do that and you to be the person who mobilizes them. And there's nothing that bonds more than putting people together to actually achieve some sort of outcome. So if you decide on some sort of community project that you guys are keen on, that could be something that could be a great bonding exercise for all of you.
No, I think the same thing, that if Jabulili, a good way of binding people together is find, even if it's a simple project where you're all kind of like invested in, even planning your own event, less the parents, post-COVID, would be a good thing. So doing a family tree, in our family, for instance, we've got very complex relationships. My mother-in-law, Mamotlana, has a very extensive family. Pamotlana's side has a very extensive. So just even sitting down and saying, who is who? You know that Auntie Rita? She's from Uganda. How does she fit into the family? And actually drawing it out and understanding, you know, like who are these people in the family and what they do. I didn't know Natasha. Natasha is my relative, by the way, on my mom-in-law's side.
There is no nepotism in G4G
right now.
No nepotism here whatsoever.
I used to see this girl, I mean, at functions. And even now, as we're talking about it, I've realized that then I learned how amazing this young woman was. But as Natasha was speaking today, I thought to myself, you know what? There are probably a couple of the cousins that I really don't appreciate. I just made a mental note that I need to know my nieces, you know, even better, and my nephews. So do something like that, even if it's just knowing a bit more about your family tree or something. It's a good starting point. Who knows what common interests you shall have that pushes it forward. But that's a really good idea. It's nice, close to home, and allows you to, in a safe space, practice your leadership skills, and yet you are being a leader. Well done.
Yeah, I agree. Well done. Tahira, I'd like to hear from you. What is there something that you would be interested in doing? Is there anything? Is Tahira still on the call?
I want to ask a question. Is that allowed?
Yes. You're the star today.
My natural born role. No, never. I want to ask, because what you're saying, now I realize I don't know much about anything. Mabato, you seem to be a very incredible woman. Whenever you talk, I find you to be the most captivating speaker ever. I find you very philosophical. You love a tale, you love a fable, you love a tale, you love a story, which is great. That's the way my granny used to teach me things about life. And you're by no means my granny's age in any way. I'm just saying I like the likeness because she was my favorite person in the whole world. How do you lead on a daily basis?
That is a question that needs me to really, really think long and hard.
You don't have to answer immediately. We've got
time. I think it's an important question, right? Because we often think leadership has to have some kind of title.
Exactly.
I'm a manager of, I'm a supervisor of that, and for me, it always starts with the self. How do I lead myself? If I have, and my most immediate environment, of course, is the home. If I expect my children to behave in a certain way, to live by certain values, am I showing up in a way that they can copy or you know, use me as a demonstration of that? So leadership for me really starts with where I am and the people around me. Of course, it can extend to what else is important for me to speak up about. I don't have to be the one in charge. So a case in point, I mean, Natasha, you were talking about this issue that's been going on in private schools, right?
Yeah.
And we have kids that are in a private school, in a mixed race school, and yet, lo and behold, goodness gracious, it's 2020. And so a bunch of us as parents are coming together to say, we need to do something, because how do we justify to our children that they must still be feeling this? So there's leadership in that instance to say there's a bunch of us that want to engage with the school to say, you know, and not unjustly so, because there have been incidents even at this particular school, and people have been going through experiences individually. And we realize there's power in the collective and power in having evidence and saying, it's not enough to dismiss us. We want to engage in a real, authentic, and fair way. So there's leadership in what are the things that I want to see change, and how can I show up in that particular environment. So it's not always about finding the biggest things. I always say to people, start with where you are. And so the questions that are being posed to the mentees, I think, are really important. You know, start with the issue of sanitary pads, etc., because that's what most affects you. Start with, and I love Jabulile's example. If they're irking you about, gosh, you know, we could be so much stronger as a family, wonderful. Push that agenda with your cousins to create a, you know, a more solid collective amongst the cousins. So it really is about issues that are near and dear to you. And sometimes even if you go, I don't think I have an issue, we are connected as people. So I asked a question in the chat bar to say to the mentees, could they help Katlego with ideas when she was sharing her bit? Because I also don't believe that I only get involved in things that concern me. So I might not be going hungry, for argument's sake. Does that mean I can't help people who are poor and don't have food, right? So it's not just about the issues that speak directly to my life, but as a human being, I said to some people yesterday that we all are just borders here. We own nothing. We really are tenants on the planet, and the best way to pay rent on the planet is to love and to serve. So find something where you can lend your resources, your voice, your skills towards making the world a different place. And for me, leadership is always around where and how can I serve. I hope that that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
What about any of the other mentees? Anyone else want to say something?
Can I ask a question perhaps to the mentees? And this is perhaps a bit of a selfish question to Natasha's point, me and my stories and that. One of the things that really irk me is how language is used, how language and words create narratives about how people are or who people are in the world. So one that I started tackling, even if it was just on social media with a bunch of people, was, what is your understanding of African time? So that's not the question I'm asking here, but I wanted to really tackle the connotations around what African time is. And there's a whole conversation we can have one day around that. But I want to ask the mentees, because we are specifically in this community of girls and women, what are some of the words that are used in your circle, in your environment, that create certain stories about girls that you would like to shatter? So I will give one example. I am incredibly irritated by this idea of calling girls drama queens, right? Oh, Natasha's such a drama queen. Oh, Busa's such a drama queen. And while it seems harmless, and in fact, there was one mother on a boys, our boys play rugby, so there was a thing, we are parents and we kind of would touch base about their games and that. And she put a little funny thing, or she thought it was funny, and it said, "Oh, luckily I have boys. If I had girls, I'd have to deal with drama queens." And I immediately went, And the reason that word, as harmless as it seems, it's created a narrative. When women speak up, we are drama queens.
Yeah.
When women say something has to change, we are drama queens.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing this one in particular to mind because girls, we are doing this program, this mentorship with you to say, take up space. And you are going to hear people say, oh, Jabulile, who does she think she is, this drama queen, when she brings an important issue to the fore? And so for me, the best way to tackle this is amongst ourselves. When Andiswa stands up for an issue, I cannot, as a sister, as a woman, label her a drama queen because then I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
So in your environments, girls, what are some of the words that are used about girls that seem harmless, that seem, that's how girls are. You know, girls are girls or boys are boys. We also know the harm of boys will be boys because it perpetuates a certain story about what boys can do. They can rape, they can, you know, catcall, they can, because boys are boys, you know.
And they don't have to be accountable for their actions.
They don't have to be accountable.
Yeah.
So girls, I'm asking you because sometimes we think, oh, I can't do a project. But every day you are speaking, every day you use language. What is it in what is spoken in your circle of other girls, or even your circle in your family, your circle in the community, that you think, hang on, maybe I can even start by changing the language and the words that we use. What could that be for you?
Can I just say to that point though, that drama queen thing carries on into adult life. You'll go into a boardroom and people will be like, oh, women are so emotional. Women can't lead because they're so emotional. It's basically the same thing as calling a woman a drama queen, right? Because you're a woman, because you have a uterus and a vagina, suddenly you're incapable of leading. But it's because, please can I tell you, in my very limited career, I find men more emotional than women ever get. I find women pretty level-headed, but we have this reputation for being volatile and being moody and being whatever, whereas the most times I've seen people acting out, it's men. But because people associate women with emotions and the expression of emotion, which I think is just a good way of communicating. It means you're an effective communicator. If you can say and be passionate about something and get it across, how is that a bad thing? It's not being dramatic, it's just being passionate. You're passionate about what you're talking about, but women have very bad rep and it follows you to boardrooms, which is ridiculous.
And I think, and let's not be shy around the issue of race, because here we are doing this work with a group of amazing young Black women.
Yeah.
There is a narrative also of Black women speaking up and being called the angry Black woman. If you've never heard of it, you will experience it, you will feel it one day. Stand up against it anyway. Do not ever dismiss or reduce your own voice because somebody looks at you and says you're an angry Black woman, because frankly, we have a lot to be angry about anyway.
Absolutely.
So for me, it is being mindful of the stories that are told about us, sometimes by mere one word or 2 words or 3 words. That's a story in itself. And for you to find that confidence to stand up and start a project and start to challenge people's, misconceptions, is you have to be mindful of the language that reduces you. But more than that, do not take part in the cycle of creating those narratives.
Professor Jardine talks about that. If we reflect a little bit on the video, and maybe it's also something we do need to look at, he talks about it. He says, you call them out. The moment they do it, they should never put you down, call them out. So maybe it's actually quite good that we reflect on, I know he gave there's some controversial points about the bright colors and how we wear them, but maybe it's a good reflection point. We asked the girls, what they thought. And this one has had, but Katleho also had something to say.
I think Kylie also.
Go ahead, Kylie.
No, I think it's Katleho who wrote something in the chat box
about volunteering. Katleho, do you want to talk us through your volunteering idea a little bit more?
Katleho, you're on mute. maybe not.
And Diswa, do you want to carry on while we wait for Katlego?
I just have a question about calling people out. How do you call people out without looking defensive?
By speaking truth. If you're uncomfortable, you describe it. So if you come back and say, if you try not to be emotional, that's the first thing. You breathe, and then you say it as it is. I tell the story about how I was leading a team and I was asked to go and get the tea. It was like, wait, what just happened here? So I breathed and I said, it's a team member of mine that's going to do it. But later on, I was actually very clear to the person and I said to them, we were not at home. We were, you want to say something?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me finish first. This is my daughter. But the thing is to be very, very cool when you say it, but describe it. You've just insulted my clothes or my dressing. It has made me feel very uncomfortable. I would appreciate an apology. Or maybe even help them understand that there is a problem. I've been in meetings where people start praying to Jesus Christ. And there are 3 Muslims sitting next to me. And we've ever had one lady saying, I really appreciate prayer, but please let us use language that is universal. Because when you prayed to Jesus Christ, you cut me out.
Yeah.
It wasn't defensive. So she described it. Because she described it, and the other person genuinely had not intended to insult or cut out or anything like that. So that's the one strategy I know. Someone has been listening in the background. Yeah.
Hi. So
Yes.
on a lot of this, but I also wanted to say, building off of like how to address it, I found that in certain situations, depending on like the kind of people around you, it also helps to question it. So when a person tells, like when mom was asked to go and get tea, you ask, why do I need to get the tea? Or when someone says a sexist joke around you or a racist joke, you ask, almost like you feign innocence. Why is that funny? I don't get it. Could you please explain it? And as they're trying to explain it, if they're a decent person, they themselves will realize this is actually really sexist, really racist, really homophobic, really whatever. And they'll kind of realize it, and it kind of, not only does it make them think about it, but it also kind of makes them a bit embarrassed, and it actually reduces the chances of them doing something like that in the future, not just with yourself, but with other people.
I think the other thing, you said that so well, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks,
I think the
Kez.
other thing that's
Feel free to stay.
She's in the background listening. But yeah, that is one of the tough pieces of advice in the video, where he says you call them out. And he said call them out immediately.
Immediately.
Those whereby, I'd rather wait. But it's true that in some instances, you call them out immediately. But this is a good question, Andiswa. Maybe the girls have others. I don't know.
The other thing he said was as well, you don't have to come across as, you can do it just in your soft, gentle way. You don't have to come across as aggressive as a woman. You can do it in a soft and gentle way if you need to stand up to somebody. And I think, Keza, the way you said it is in terms of asking it. It's explained so well. Anyone else have anything?
I think my mom always told me, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but based on the world we live in, I'm sure you have. Like being in Woolworths and you're minding your own business or whatever shop really, and then some white lady, let's not lie, or white person is like, sorry, where are the tomatoes or whatever they're asking for? Because they immediately assume because you're black, you work there, because why would a black person, and I'm specifically talking about Woolworths because I find this is where this happens to me the most often. And my mom, who is quite a hothead, learned and taught Iman and I that don't yell, because now yelling is not going to be the answer. But she always, and I witnessed it when it happened, and a woman was like, sorry, where are the tomatoes? And my mom was like, oh my God, that's so weird. I was about to ask you where the tomatoes are. And then this woman was just like, why would you ask me? And my mom was like, well, why? Why would you ask me? I have just as much chance of knowing where the tomatoes are as you do. Like, it's so weird. And then you can literally see people's brains like short-circuiting. It's quite a wonderful thing to witness because you've thrown it back at them. You haven't, not that there's any problem, and this is my point with getting emotional, but in a case where you can handle this in a non-like overly emotional way, because sometimes there's things you feel far too passionately about. If someone is racist, it's very rare that you can just be calm about. Racism is it's a disgusting thing. So, you know, but in a case like this, you can ask someone, where are the tomatoes? I was about to ask you. I mean, well, for you. I have also seen my mother try to fight someone at Woolworths, so she doesn't always get it right, but I'm just saying it happens, you know, it happens.
So we're recording this session. Huh?
She knows what she did. There's no secrets here. It's a confidential space. Hello, safe space.
Yeah, there we go. But what do girls think about the statistics Professor Jardine gave about how influential it is to use voice vis-a-vis body language, vis-a-vis the words you say. So my question to Katleho, you know, as you guys describe these projects that potentially you might, you know, go after, did you learn anything from those videos? Ntebogang, you're quiet today, Jabulile. Did you learn anything from the video? Did you learn any skills, or do you have any questions around the things that he gave? Because it was sometimes surprising. We always think it's about what you know and therefore what you say that wins people over. But he gave quite a bit of interesting advice. Any comments? TikTok.
Allow for the silence.
Did we watch the video, by the way? You know, we didn't ask that famous question of ours. By a show of hands, did anyone watch the video? Kylie, you've been quiet today, my love. Kylie, is Kylie there, or she's switched on and Kylie, we have to know that you're there. Tahira?
Yeah.
Did you watch the video, darling?
Tahira?
The video that was shared on your WhatsApp group with by Andiswa or Kinelwe?
The video of Steve Journey.
Yes, that one. Any comments on what you heard in the video?
What I heard is he says you have to stand up for yourself, and you shouldn't let anybody tell you you're not capable.
Yep.
Well done. That's a really good.
Keep going, Tahira. I think her internet is cutting.
Yeah.
You should express your feelings, be confident, and show your passion.
Good job.
Was there anything else that any of the other girls took from the video?
From the video, I think like what stood out to me was him emphasizing how differently women are going to be treated. Like regardless of how passionate you are or something, woman, you're going to be treated a little different because you are a woman.
Yeah.
And to link that with the question Mabatu asked, which is what have you heard that like and I think that in addition it's that whole
can finish posting me. Yeah.
That people always
Struggling to hear you, Jabulinda.
I think Andiswa needs to turn her mic off.
Andiswa, you need to mute yourself, Andiswa.
Okay. Jabrina, can you just start it again? You were talking about Mbatu, what Mbatu say?
Okay, so I was saying to think that with phrases or statements that that are sort of stereotypical towards women is okay. We say magoti, which is wife, which can be a great thing, right? But often I find it, the reason I don't do something, let's say I want to do something and the first thing is like, oh, what is your mother-in-law gonna think? Or what are they gonna think? Like, what kind of wife are you gonna be if you're too loud? Or, you know, the man is the head of the family, which means that you should always respect him. And I think I've begun to find that like really annoying, because instead of looking at me as a person first, you're going to look at me as like how I can associate myself to a man. So if I was to dress a certain way, it's like, oh, what is your husband? And there's no husband, there's no mother-in-law, but already people are like telling you that no, consider what would happen if you had a mother-in-law or if you had a husband. And I think that sort of blocks out you wanting to be brave and you wanting to make certain decisions. And I find that even in the house, let's say I'll sleep till 8 a.m. and everyone's awake at 7, and they'll say, oh my gosh, what is your husband gonna say? Why haven't you married? You know, and automatically everyone's just thinking, now I have to consider this husband that I first of all never met, this husband I don't even know exists, you know, and often that's made me like really rebellious, and I'll be like, I won't do the dishes because there's no husband here, so why must I do the dishes if the only reason you think I do the dishes is because I want to impress my husband or my mother-in-law or something like that. So I think a large aspect of decisions that people, or a large aspect of things that people around you say is reducing you to accommodate a certain person. So when you're too loud, it's because, you know, sometimes you have to lower your voice to accommodate a certain person. And I think that's been like a big problem for me, because instead of being able to easily communicate with people, I'm just like, you know what, I might as well not do it at all. If when I do it, you think I'm doing it because I'm trying to please somebody else, or because I'm trying to, you know, accommodate this man that hasn't, you know, existed yet, you see. So what I've taken away from the video and from the stigma around women is that it's important to just be aware that some people just don't think about it further than what you are, and it's important to just like push your form of communication and push that thing of, I'm not doing this because I feel like it's going to impress some man. I'm doing it because it's going to impress myself, because at the end of the day, it's everything I do I feel like it has to make sense to me. And if this husband disappears, at least it was never for him to begin with. So it's, you know, I think that's something very important to teach girls, is that it should always be for you, but it should be a good thing. Not that, you know, you should do bad things because you want to do bad things, but do good things because you deserve the good things, not because it's what people tell you to do, but it's what you deserve for yourself.
Leela, that was so well said. think you summed it up so clearly. How do you deal with it right now? What have you been doing before? Were you keeping quiet, or did you speak out about it?
At first I kept quiet because I was just like, I just thought, okay, this is what people are used to, you know? Because I think as society learns new information, we realize that some of the things we were taught or some of the customs people got used to aren't exactly okay. So at first I'd keep quiet, but now I really say it. And like I said, sometimes if I feel like my message isn't getting across, then I just draw away from that thing, because I don't want to like shout at old people, or I don't want to seem aggressive, or you know. So at first I was quiet because I realized that maybe it's what they're used to, but it's important for you to try to teach them something that you feel is important for them to learn. So now I've learned to speak about it more openly, and if I find it's a bit too much and it's not getting across, I think I just try to withdraw myself from the situation and, you know, find inner peace within.
You're very wise in terms of choosing your battles. But the times that you have spoken about it, have you found that it's made a difference in some ways?
I think it has, because in some instances, but in other instances, I've learned that, okay, it's something I have to say more than once. Because I remember I had an argument with my mom, and she said, and this time I was fuming, and she says, you know, I think you're going a little crazy. And I said, if I'm going crazy, then drop me off at an institution, because I'm
Laughter is always the best end to any conversation when it gets a little bit acrimonious. But lovely example. Thank you so much. That was really insightful.
Ever since, she's never called me crazy again, or she's never said something.
You made your point.
So I think sometimes you see saying it once works, but other times you realize, okay, maybe this is something you need to repeat. When you see it happening, just point it out, like, oh, this is happening again, and I've spoken about how I don't like this, or this makes me uncomfortable, or I don't want to hear this again.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
Very well done.
Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add?
I'd like to tell Mabato that a word that I hate, loathe, and cannot stand is slut. My worst word is sludge. I can't actually explain to you how annoying I find slut shaming, and especially because it's associated with only women.
Yeah.
Girls are not allowed to embrace their sexual beingness in any way without being slut shamed. Boys can be boys and have sex with a plethora of women or anyone, but girls, the second that they are remotely sexual in any way, which is a God-given right, suddenly girls are labeled as sluts. And that's my word that annoys me the most.
Have any of the mentees had an example of that happening to them?
He calls them non-negotiables. Huh? So, yeah. You know, I think it would be interesting to hear from the mentees. And really, I'm sure all of us have them. So it would be great to hear from Tebogang, Kylie. What are the non-negotiables? The one thing someone will not call you or treat you as, that you will draw the line? Tebogang?
Oops.
Oh yeah, as for me, I wouldn't like being called marriage material, because it brings about, you know, this sense of being submissive to a man, like of
Yes.
a man. That means I cannot be a person of my own. I always have to be submissive. Okay, I do get that we have to be submissive unto men, but we are not only that, we are powerful, we are leaders as well. We cannot be called, like, it seems we are weak people if we called marriage material people, like wives and whatnot. I really don't like that word. Like, I
Marriage
don't like it. Sorry, I
material.
don't find it charming. I don't find it. Yeah, I don't like
It's
that
not
word.
charming. It's not
Yeah.
charming at all.
Tabafang, you don't have to be submissive to anybody. You said you have. We don't have to be submissive to anybody, not even a man, especially no. But
No.
yes, that was an excellent example.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Can
I
I
think it's
respond to
fascinating.
Natasha?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I think for me, what you just used as an example is, again, the power of words. One word, slut. Think of the connection to gender-based violence.
Yep.
A lot of the stories you hear about women saying, even, I didn't, I was raped, for example, I didn't want to report it, is because they get asked questions like, what were you wearing? Did you know the person? What did you say? In other words, we blame, exactly, the victim is blamed because the assumption automatically is, you must be a slut.
Yeah.
Because why would this person just have picked on you? So for me, again, this is why I think that's my passion. What are the words we need to really address and kind of break down the narratives? Jabulile spoke about the word makoti. Interestingly, this is the next one that I want to tackle with some people.
Yeah.
Because that I'm called makoti, while it can be a good thing, but it assigns a role to me, but it also assigns the way people behave towards me when I am a makoti. It also takes away the fact that I have my own identity. I'm not just makoti, I'm mabatu, right? So I think what I was trying to say to the girls is, and I think some of what Jabulile especially was starting to talk about introduces a very sensitive layer, but one that I think we need to address. It is one of culture. It's a very difficult one, but how does culture, especially as women, while it's meant to be something that lays a strong and a solid foundation, can sometimes create narratives that are counter to us showing up in the power that we possess in the world. So thank you for the words that you're contributing. I did say it was a bit selfish, so I'm stealing these words to go and do my own little word and narrative bashing project. Thank you.
We're a focus group for you. I like it.
But culture evolves. Culture evolves, Mabatu. Tradition is the one that doesn't evolve. Culture evolves. So Makoti.
That's my argument. It is dynamic and it has to change. It has to change.
Yeah. So if that marriage material, that's what we can start changing. People's language. Don't call me marriage material. Instead, tell me I'm a smart, intelligent, energetic woman. Rather call me that way. Yeah.
Right. I think we're about to wrap up. I'd like to ask Natasha to just award her book before I close for the session.
I was like, oh, Val, if you ask me for one more thing, I'm going to.
Her face was like, nope, I'm going home.
I got such a fright. I was like, what more could I possibly give today?
You're going to give a gift?
Heart and my soul.
Give a gift.
This is hard because I feel like the girls were so great today.
You can give it to me.
No.
I have one, but I have another one.
Okay, I'm gonna give it to Jabulile.
Jabulile, yay! Yay, Jabulile!
I hope you find inspiration from the 30 remarkable women in this book in starting your projects at school and in the world. I hope you are so inspired like I was writing this book.
Thank you so much. So ladies, I'm going to just sum up again some of the key points from today's session. We discussed so many varied and different things, but I think some of the key things from the service and leadership session is about not changing who you are, finding what it is within your own space where you can make a difference, where you can be a leader, and where you can step up. I think the other thing is about getting yourself and putting yourself out there in a way that is authentic, that is real, and then choosing the environments where you want to be and speak up about the things that you care about the most and where you can make an impact. And of course, the one that we covered quite a lot at the end is don't ever let anyone patronize you in any way, shape, or form. Girls, thank you so much. I know there are a few of you on the call today, but you really made an effort to participate. Yeah. And I think it was phenomenal. So thank you very, very much. And Natasha, just another thanks for a really incredible speech, so inspiring. And thank you for covering all the topics so beautifully. It was really, really amazing.
Thank you.
Girls, we have for next week, well, not next week, sorry, but for our next session, which is the last session, the culmination of everything we've done so far. And that we will be talking about ethics and values. And so what I'd like you to do in terms of preparation for that session, please, is to look up and find out where you can see where public service or opportunities are in your communities are for giving back, and seeing what you can do and maybe bring them to the next session.